Google Doc.
Yeah, I just changed it. Okay, hi guys. Welcome everybody to another English class here on verbling.com. As you can tell in my voice, I still have a little bit of my cold, so my voice comes and goes a little bit. In this hour, we're going to be reading an article from the New Yorker magazine, newyorker.com, and I put the link to the Google document, and I set the permissions, so everybody should be able to open it now. So it looks like it's working. So if you have a reservation, of course you can go ahead and use the reservation now. If you don't, just wait a minute and you'll see the join class button up at the top, and then anybody who is a Verbling member can join. It did say that the class was fully booked, so I hope people know by now that even though it says that, not everybody always shows up. I think people get excited and they want to make sure they're going to be able to get into the class, and then maybe something comes up and they don't come to class, and so there is space. We can have 9 people in the class, so if you would like to read and discuss this article with us, then you can join us. So hi Monica, how are you?
Hi, Lisa. Very well, thank you.
Okay, good. Welcome to class. And
Thank you.
Hamid, how are you doing today?
I am fine. I
Yeah.
met with my 2 friends. One is from Japan, another is from Romania.
You met them in person or online?
No, on Skype.
Oh, cool. All right. Like in a little chat or something?
Yes.
Nice. That's fun. Okay. Are they chemists as well, or just?
No.
Oh, okay.
One is also English teacher, but she learns Turkish, and I
Uh-huh.
am helping to her in Turkish.
Oh, great. Wonderful. That's awesome.
And
Okay.
my Japanese friend plans to go to some countries, for example, USA and India,
Oh.
and probably she can send some letters and gives to me.
I know you like that. Okay. Wonderful. Awesome. Okay, guys. Yeah, just go ahead and come on in. I like to take, at least wait a couple of minutes in the beginning of the class to see if people join us. So let me just say hi to everybody. Make sure your microphones are working and everything's working as it should be. Hi, Wellington. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. My voice is a little cracking and going away a little bit because of my cold, but I feel okay. Thank you.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Paulo, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm doing well. And you?
Good, good. I'm okay. Just a little bit. I have a funny voice right now.
That's
Well,
okay.
yeah. Welcome everybody, and happy New Year again.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Luis Alberto, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm doing okay. Thanks. Welcome. Okay, guys. Happy New Year, everybody. Today I got an article from the New Yorker. This is kind of a popular magazine here in the United States. It's called the New Yorker, but it doesn't just talk about things from New York, but it does have articles related to lots of different topics. It also is pretty famous for its cartoons, if you've ever seen them. But this is not about cartoons. So this is an article called "Why Airlines Want to Make You Suffer," and it was written a couple days ago. And it's kind of an interesting idea. If you have traveled, a lot of us who travel on the airplanes, sometimes you have a good experience and you're happy, and sometimes you're kind of frustrated with maybe the delays or things getting lost or things like that. And some people might know, I'm 44 years old, so I've been traveling for a while, so I've definitely noticed over the years how the airlines, the airplanes, the space has gotten smaller. They give you less stuff, and it's not as nice as it used to be on a lot of the airlines. So I don't know. Hamid, you've been traveling quite a bit in the last year or two on airplanes. Is your
Yes.
experience usually good or not?
The worst experience was in Norway because I waited for my luggage around 2 hours and unfortunately I couldn't find my luggage. Then we went to one service. I filled one document. Then I went to my hotel. That day was a Sunday, and I received my luggage on Wednesday. So I waited for 3 days.
Oh man, yeah. That's one of the common problems with airlines is losing your luggage. That's
And my luggage came from Brussels, Belgium.
oh, that's strange. Yeah, it went to another place. Yep.
Yes.
That sometimes happens when two cities have the same name, but they're like in a different part of the country or a totally different country. Sometimes. Okay,
I think the problem is that day Turkey had a president election day, and it was very crowded. The airports also, people's minds are very interesting.
yeah. Okay.
So
They weren't paying attention.
yes,
Okay, I get it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and read. It is a little bit longer one today, so hopefully we'll have time to finish it and discuss it, and other people can give their stories about what you've noticed over the years with the difference in the airplanes and the service that you get when you travel by plane. Okay, this fall, JetBlue Airline finally threw in the towel. For years, the company was among the last holdouts in the face of an industry trend towards smaller seats, higher fees, and other forms of unpleasantness. JetBlue distinguished itself by providing decent, fee-free service for everyone, an approach that seemed to be working. Passengers liked the airline, and it made a consistent profit. Okay, Wellington, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Um, this fall, JetBlue Airline finally threw in the towel. For years, the company was among the last holdouts in the face of an industry trend toward smaller seats, higher fees, and other forms of unpleasantness. JetBlue distinguished itself by providing decent, fee-free service for everyone, an approach that seemed to be working. Passengers liked the airline and it made a consistent profit.
hmm Okay, let's see. Wellington, do you understand this expression to throw in the towel? What do you think that means?
Desisted, like uh, I understand, but I don't know explain.
Yeah, good.
Uh,
That's an interesting step in English learning or in any learning of a language. Is I do this same thing with French. I know what it means. I get the idea, but it's hard to explain it. So I want to tell you an easy way to explain it. It just means they quit. So to quit, they stopped service. So if you throw in the towel, it means like I give up, I'm done, I
yes,
quit. Yeah.
yes. The word is this. I give
Yeah.
up. They
Yeah,
give
I
up.
give up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very common expression that people use for lots of different things. Whenever you're doing something, it's like, oh, I throw in the towel. I'm done. I give up. It's too much. So they were a business, JetBlue and Airlines, and they just recently quit in the fall. Um, let's see. They were the last holdouts. A holdout is somebody like a person or a group of people or a business that are holding out. That means they're waiting, they're waiting. They're still kind of the last ones doing something. So they were an airline that was trying to give you better service. So that they were, all the other airlines were changing their ways of doing things, but they were a holdout. They were holding. So the phrasal verb is to hold out. I'll put it here. To hold out means you're still trying to do things a certain way. Maybe even as other things are changing, other people are changing their ways or other businesses. In the face of an industry trend. So the industry, the airline industry was going towards, there was a trend, which means like what people are doing, So in business, businesses were going towards having smaller seats, higher fees, charging you for baggage and everything now, and other forms of unpleasantness. So other things that passengers didn't really appreciate or like. JetBlue, this company, they were different. They distinguished itself or themselves, which means they differentiated themselves. They were different because they were doing things kind of the old way. They were providing decent, not perfect, but good enough fee-free service for everybody. You didn't have to pay extra money for a lunch, or extra money to put a bag on the plane or something like that. And it seemed to be working, this approach, this way of doing things, because passengers liked it and they had a consistent profit. So consistent means, every month, for example. Consistent means like regularly. So they were having a profit. Wall Street analysts, however, accused JetBlue of being overly brand conscious and customer focused. In November, the airline, under new management, announced that it would follow United, Delta, and the other major carriers by cramming more seats into economy, shrinking legroom, and charging a range of new fees for things like bags and Wi-Fi. Okay, Paulo.
Worse.
Me?
Yes, please. You can read that paragraph again.
Okay. Wall Street analysts, however, accused JetBlue of being overly brand conscious and customer focused. In November, the airline, under new management, announced that it would follow United, Delta, and the other major carriers by cramming more seats into economy. That's words I don't know, like rules and charging a range of new fees for things like bags and Wi-Fi.
Okay, so this gives us the information about throwing in the towel. So, they kept trying to do something different, and now they're like, okay, we give up. We're going to change and be like everybody else. We can't keep doing it this way. Okay, so what happened was these analysts, Wall Street meaning the market, people who analyze businesses and the stocks and things like that, they accused the company of, a company of doing something or being a certain way. It means you say, you're doing this and it's not good. And so they were too brand conscious, focusing on the name JetBlue, and they were too focused on their customers, which that kind of seems like a good thing. But they went under new management. So when you're talking about a business, you are under management. So new management, new people came in to manage the company, and they told everybody that they were going to follow what the other airlines were doing. That's the throwing in the towel. Like, we give up, okay, fine, we'll do what everybody else is going to do or what they are doing already. So the major carriers, airline carriers, companies, cramming. So a couple of different words here. Cramming more seats into economy. Cramming is when you try to stuff things in, it's tight. So before, they had less seats and you had more room. But now they're trying to, add more seats into the economy class, which shrinks legroom. So shrinking, making smaller. To shrink something means to make it smaller. So you have less leg room, less room for your legs now. And now they are charging. So now you have to pay for things like a bag, not just a overhead bag, but to go under the plane. And also for Wi-Fi, where that used to be included. It used to be free. It seems that the money was just too good to resist. In 2013, the major airlines combined made about $31.5 billion in income from fees, as well as other ancillaries, such as redeeming credit card points. United pulled in more than $5.7 billion in fees and other ancillary income in 2013, while Delta scored more than $2.5 billion. Wow. Monica.
It seems that money was just too good to resist. In 2013, the major airlines combined made about $31.5 million in income from fees, as well as other ancillaries such as redeeming credit card points. United pulled in more than $5.7 billion in fees and other ancillary income in 2013, while Delta scored more than $2.5 billion.
Yeah. So whenever you say it seems that, so it looks like the money was just too good to resist. So to resist means to say no, no, we're not going to do this, but wow, these companies are making a lot of money. So combined means when you put them together, so all the major airlines, United, Alaska Air, I don't know, the Virgin maybe, different ones, Delta, they made a combined $31.5 billion just from the fees. This does not include the cost of your ticket. This is the extra fees that you pay for things, and then other ancillaries. So ancillary, that's a noun there. It just means extra services or extra products that they can sell you. One of the things is when you go to redeem your points, like your airline mileage points, you say, I want to use them now. That's called to redeem them, to use them. They charge you to to book a flight. And then let's see, pulled in more. So when you're talking about money, you pull in money. That's your income from like a product or a service that you're offering. So they're pulling in or bringing in a lot of money in fees and other ancillary items, but all of these companies. So JetBlue just couldn't resist. They wanted to make that kind of money as well. That's income derived in large part from services such as baggage carriage that were once included in ticket prices. Today, as anyone who travels knows well, you can pay fees ranging from $40 to $300 for things like boarding in a fast lane, sitting in slightly better economy class seats, bringing along the family dog, or sending an unaccompanied minor on a plane. Loyal flyers or people willing to pay a giant annual fee can avoid some of these charges. Others are unavoidable. Okay, Luis Alberto. Starting from that's income.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's income derived in large part from services, such as baggage carriage, that were once included in ticket prices. Today, as anyone who travels knows well, you can pay fees ranging from $40 to $300 for things like boarding in a fast lane, sitting in slightly better economy class seats, bringing along the family dog, or sitting an unaccompanied minor on a plane. Loyal flyers or people willing to pay a giant annual fee can avoid some of these charges. Others are unavoidable.
Unavoidable, yes. So that's income. So that we're talking about this type of income derived in large part from. So derived goes with from, and then they put in the in large part, just so a majority of this comes from. So to be derived from, or to derive from means to come from. These kind of services that we used to just get because we paid the ticket price, and now you got all these services. So now the baggage carriage, that means like if you check a bag, you don't carry it on, you have to check it, that you get charged for that extra. There are all kinds of other things as well. So for example, let's see, a fast lane. So if you want to go in a special lane so that you get onto your plane quicker, you can pay extra money. Sitting in a better, slightly just means like a little bit better, not a lot. Also, to bring your dog costs money. And this one I've done before because I have 3 kids. Unaccompanied, that means a child under 14, for example, is going on the plane by themselves to, go to their grandparents' house or something like that. So a minor is like usually defined as somebody under 14 for the airplanes. You have to pay extra for them in addition to their ticket. Loyal flyers, so people who fly a lot, or people who might want to pay a yearly fee or an annual fee, they can avoid some of these charges because they're paying for them, already. But sometimes they are unavoidable. That means you cannot get around them. You have to pay them. There's no other option. So that makes your ticket sometimes a lot more expensive. The fees have proved a boon to the U.S. airlines, which will post a projected $20 billion profit in 2014. To be fair, airlines are not just profiting because of fee income. Reduced competition thanks to mergers helps. There is also the plummet in the price of oil, which the airlines seem to have collectively agreed is no reason to reduce fares or even remove fuel surcharges. But for the past decade, it is fees that have been the fastest growing source of income for the main airlines, having increased by 1,200% since 2007. Wow. Okay, Hamid.
The fees have proved a boon to the U.S. airlines, which will post a projected $20 billion profit in 2014. To be fair, airlines are not just profiting because of fee income. Reduced competition, thanks to mergers, helps. There is also the plummet in the price of oil, which the airlines seem to have collectively agreed is no reason to reduce fares or even remove fuel surcharges. But for the past decade, it is the fees that have been the fastest growing source of income for the main airlines, having increased by 1,200% since 2007.
Lisa?
I think she cleans
Oh, sorry.
her throat.
Yeah, I was drinking some water. Okay. The fees have proved a boon. So a boon means like a benefit. You know, they've done well. They've increased their profits because of that. A lot, not just by a little bit, $20 billion. Let's see, they're not just profiting because of this. Also, another reason is because of reduced competition thanks to mergers. When you merge, you put two companies together. So nowadays, here in the U.S., several companies have come together to make one company. So that, of course, reduces the competition between different companies because now they're together as one company. There is also the plummet in the price of oil. Plummet means the decrease. It doesn't just mean decrease. It drops off quickly. So people have probably been reading that the price of oil has fallen a lot recently. That's called the plummet. Let's see, and of course collectively, so that means all together as a collective group, the airlines have decided, or they've agreed, that they don't need to reduce the fares. The fare is the ticket price. They don't need to reduce them just because of the the cost of oil going down, which would be fair to the consumers perhaps, but they're not doing it. That means they're paying less for oil but charging us still the same. And they're not even removing fuel surcharges. Those are extra charges for to pay for the gas. Yeah, so that's kind of crazy. All right, so they're doing pretty well, it looks like, these companies. If fees are great for airlines, what about for us? Does it make any difference if an airline collects its cash in fees as opposed to through ticket sales? The airlines and some economists argue that the rise of the fee model is good for travelers. You only pay for what you want, and you can therefore save money if you, for instance, don't mind sitting in middle seats in the back, waiting in line to board, or bringing your own food. That's why American Airlines called its fees program Your Choice and suggests that it makes the travel experience even more convenient, cost-effective, flexible, and personalized. Okay, Wellington.
One point.
Yes.
One time, a crew permitted me, my wife, enter in the first line with a ticket cheap classic.
Wait, you got to go on the fast lane or into first class?
The fast lane. The fast lane. Yes, but the lane is it was long, very long. Yeah. It's good for me. It was good for me.
Okay.
So let's go.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah. If If fees are great for airlines, what about for us? Does it make any difference if an airline collects its cash in fees and opposed to through ticket sales? The airlines and some economists argue that the rise of the fee model is good for travelers. You only pay for what you want, and you can therefore save money if you, for instance, don't mind sitting in the middle seats in the back, waiting in the line to board or bringing your own food. That's why American Airlines can its fees program you choice and chooses that is each makes the travel experience even more convenient, cost-effective, flexible, and personalized.
Mm-hmm.
Personalized.
Personal,
Personalized.
personalized. Yeah.
Personalized.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. So that's the question. Like, are we getting a good deal or a bad deal for us? That's kind of the question. Does it make a difference if they collect its cash or their cash? Collect means they either charge us more per ticket price to include all those things, or they break up the cost. That's what they're saying. So the airlines and some economists, so some people who study the economy, and how people buy things and that kind of stuff, they argue. So their point of view is that the rise of the fee model, so this idea that now we have different fees for different services, is good for people who travelers, because you only pay for what you want. So you can save money, for example, if you don't mind. If you don't mind means it doesn't matter to you, like you're okay with sitting in the back. You don't mind waiting in line to board the plane, to get on the plane, and you don't mind bringing your own food. You don't have to have food on the plane, like from the airlines. And so it's called your choice. So you get to choose. And so they argue that this travel experience is more convenient for some people. It means it's easier. You don't have to pay for things you don't really want to use. It costs less for some people, so it's more effective that way, cost effective. Flexible. You get to choose the things that you want to participate in or not. And personalized. Every person has their own experience. That's the idea there. But the fee model comes with systematic costs that are not immediately obvious. Here's the thing. In order for fees to work, there needs to be something worth paying to avoid. That necessitates, at some level, a strategy that can be described as calculated misery. Basic service without fees must be sufficiently degraded in order to make people want to pay to escape it. And that's where the suffering begins. Okay. Hi, Rafa. Welcome.
Sorry for the delay.
No problem. Do you want to read? You can read right now.
Okay, perfect.
There you go.
But the fee model comes with systematic costs that are not immediately obvious. Here's the thing. In order for fees to work, there needs to be something worth paying to avoid. That necessitates, at some level, a strategy that can be described as calculated misery. Basic service without fees must be sufficiently degraded in order to make people want to pay to escape it. And that's where the suffering begins.
That's where the suffering begins. So let me just catch you up a little bit here, Rafa. We're just talking about this article which started off explaining that a company called JetBlue, they just threw in the towel, which means they used to give a lot of service for their ticket price. They used to include a lot of services, but now they're giving up that practice, and they're doing what all these other airlines are doing, which is supposedly lowering the price of the ticket and then adding fees for other things, like if you want to have a lunch, or if you want to have Wi-Fi, or if you want to check a baggage, or something
Or go
like
to the
that.
toilet.
Yeah. So the article is questioning whether or not this is good for travelers. The airlines, of course, think that it is. They want to convince us that it's better because you get to choose what you pay for and you don't have to pay for things you don't want. But in this paragraph that you just read, he says, the author argues that this type of model, this fee structure, this model, comes with systematic costs. So systematic means, system-wide, things that we might not even think about. They're not immediately obvious. We can't see them very clearly. But the main thing is that if, in order for the fees to work, you have to have something worth paying to avoid. So you have to, he's arguing that the basic service has to be lower already. And so he calls it calculated, which means somebody calculated it, somebody figured this out, and then misery. So misery means like unpleasantness, people aren't happy about certain things, they feel badly. So that's what his argument is in this paragraph that you just read. Basic service without the fees must be sufficiently degraded. So degraded means downgraded, so it's lower. Basic service is lower, it's low enough to make people want to pay to get out of it. You want better service, so you're going to have to pay. And that's where the suffering begins, he argues, because the basic service is so low, you have to pay to get better service. The necessity of degrading basic service provides a partial explanation for the fact that in the past decade, the major airlines have done what they can to make flying basic economy, particularly on longer flights, an intolerable experience. For one thing, as the Wall Street Journal has documented, airlines have crammed more seats into the basic economy section of the airplane, even on long-haul flights. The seats, meanwhile, have gotten smaller. They are narrower and set closer together. Bill McGee, a contributing editor to Consumer Reports who worked in the airline industry for many years, studied seat size and summarized his findings this way. The roomiest economy seats you can book on the nation's 4 largest airlines are narrower than the tightest economy seats offered in the 1990s. Okay, Monica.
Okay. The necessity of degrading basic service provides a partial explanation for the fact that in the past decade, the major airlines have done what they can to make flying basic economy, particularly on longer flights, an intolerable experience. For one thing, as the Wall Street Journal has documented, airlines have crammed more seats into the basic economic section of the airplane, even on long-haul flights. The seats, meanwhile, have gotten smaller. They are narrower and set closer together. Bill McGee, a contributing editor to Consumer Reports, who worked in the airline industry for many years, studied seat size and summarized his finding this way. The roomiest economy seats you can book on the nation's 4 largest airlines are now narrower than the tightest economy seats offered in the 1990s.
Okay, the necessity of doing something. So the need to do something. That's what that means. Degrading, so making it less, making the basic service less good, worse off, you could say. That provides a partial explanation. So that's part of the reason, what they've been doing, why they've been doing this, to make flying the basic economy, particularly on longer flights, intolerable. So he's basically saying intolerable just means like you can't really stand it. It's very uncomfortable. You cannot tolerate it. You can't put up with it. You don't like it. So that's one of the reasons he's saying. And then he gives some examples about this. For one thing, so that's another way to say like for example or for instance, you could say, the Wall Street Journal newspaper has documented, so they've written about this, that the airlines, again, have been cramming. So to cram, again, to fit more into a same size space. And so that means they're trying to put more seats into this one section of the plane, even on the long haul flight. So this would be something like from, California to Australia, or California or Seattle or something to Hong Kong. A flight that's like 10 or more hours would be considered a long haul. Maybe even like a 7-hour flight would be considered a long haul versus like, a 2 or 3 hour flight, or a quick commuter flight, which is like an hour or something like that. Also, they're narrower, so that means, skinnier, so less room. The seats are smaller, and that's basically been happening over the last 20 years or more. So in the 1990s, they were much bigger, is the main idea there. People were more comfortable. I remember flying back from Europe in the 1990s, and you could just, if there weren't anybody in the seats, you could stretch out and sleep. It was very comfortable. That's not possible these days. Boarding for non-elite flyers has become a miserable experience. There are far more efficient ways to load planes than the current back-to-front method, which is actually slower than random boarding. The process takes longer still, thanks to the practice of letting flyers with status board out of turn, and thanks to luggage charges which compel fee avoiders to cram their bags into overhead compartments. Airlines lack a real incentive to fundamentally improve boarding for everyone by, for example, investing in methods such as filling both ends of an airplane at once. It would make life better and also defeat the status racket. Okay, Hamid.
Boarding for non-elite flyers has also become a miserable experience. There are far more efficient ways to load planes than the current back-to-front method, which is actually slower than random boarding. The process takes longer still thanks to the practice of letting flyers with a status board out of turn, and thanks to luggage charges which compel fee avoiders to cram their bags into overhead compartments. Airlines lack a real incentive to fundamentally improve boarding for everyone by, for example, investing in methods such as filling both ends of an airplane at once. It would make life better and also defeat the status racket.
Okay, so boarding, that means getting on the plane. You're boarding the plane. And so that's usually a long and tedious process, and that's what he's explaining in this paragraph here. So if you are a non-elite flyer, that means you're not going in first class or even business class or something. The economy class could become a miserable experience. So, you have to wait a long time. It's kind of just, it's not very pleasant, is what he's saying. He says there are more efficient ways to load a plane. To load means to board, to get people onto the plane. You can do it more efficiently than they usually do it, from back to front, where they're calling people and putting them in the back first and then moving the next people in, which he says is slower than random boarding, just letting people get in line and then just go to their seats wherever there are. He's saying it takes longer thanks to the practice of letting flyers with status. So that's what, like, they let people with certain types of status, maybe like gold flyers or something like this, go on, and that means they go out of turn. So they're not doing the back to front. They're doing that, but then they're adding in people who have special status, like frequent flyers or something like that. And then another one is this. What happens is the people who just take the carry-on baggage, they're trying to fit or cram their bags into the overhead compartments. That's what you call those little spaces above where you're supposed to fit stuff. And so sometimes your people are really having a hard time getting all of their luggage into those compartments. That takes a long time and slows you down. They don't have a real incentive. So an incentive is a reason, like what is the benefit? And so, okay, I'm going to do it because of that. So they're not even trying to improve the boarding experience for people. And then this is a racket. The word racket is usually like something that you're doing that isn't very effective, and it's almost like it could be fraudulent, like if you're the mafia and you're running a racket, a gambling racket or something like that. But in this case, he's just explaining that this is kind of a ridiculous way to do things. Fee models also lead most people to spend unwarranted time and energy calculating, agonizing, and repacking in the hope of avoiding paying more. The various fees make prices hard to compare, as a ticket can now represent just a fraction of the total expense. These are real costs, and they are compounded by ticketing practices which demand perfect timing. When customers miscalculate their schedules or their plans change, the airline is ready with its punishment, the notorious $200 rebooking and change fee. Those change fees are particularly lucrative. In 2014, Delta and United are projected to collect nearly $1 billion each, and the greater social cost comes from those who didn't change their tickets even though they wanted to. Okay, Wellington. Wellington, your microphone is muted.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Fee models also lead most people to spend unwarranted time and energy calculating, agonizing, and repacking in the hope of avoiding paying more. The variable fees make prices hard to compare, as a ticket can now represent just a fraction of the total expense. These are real costs, and they are compounded by ticketing practice, which demand perfect timing. When customers miscalculate their schedules or their plans change, the airline is ready with its punishment. The notorious $200 rebooking and change fee. Those change fees are particularly lucrative. In 2014, Delta and United are projected to collect nearly $1 billion each. And the great social cost comes from those who didn't change their tickets even though they want to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So they lead most people to do something. That means they, it kind of makes these people do this. So because you don't want to spend more money checking a baggage, you might spend unwarranted, like unnecessary time and energy calculating, trying to figure out, how to pack your bags. You're agonizing. That means you're just like, oh no, I can't fit this in. How am I going to get this in my bag? And you keep trying to repack your bags because you want to avoid paying more money. You don't want to have to check a bag and pay $40 or something like that. So that's maybe a frustration that people have. It also makes it hard to compare the ticket prices because you're not really sure what you're going to be charged for. So, is it really $300 or is it going to equal $400 once you get everything you need? What are the real costs? They are compounded means like put together by, so they like more and more are getting stacked on top of each other. So the ticketing practices, you get the ticket price and then you have to put your bag in the luggage carriage, and then you have to pay for something else. So compounded just means one on top of another. They get more and more. We talk about compounded interest. That's another one where you get interest on your investment or something like that, compounded over time. Okay, so he's just talking about some of the main frustrations. If you miscalculate, you make a mistake in your schedule and your plan changes, for example, you are going to be punished. You're going to have to pay for that. The notorious, which means famous, but for a negative reason. Nobody wants to pay an extra fee, especially it's not cheap. It's not just like $25 or something. It's sometimes $200 to change your flight. That means to rebook, to change it for like another day or something like that. These are really lucrative for the companies. That means they make them a lot of money. If something is lucrative, it makes you a lot of money. But there's a greater social cost. So the customers are the people who didn't want to pay that fee. They didn't change their tickets even though they wanted to. So they didn't have that flexibility. You just had to do what you originally signed up to do, paid to do, even if it doesn't work for you anymore. So that's a problem for customers. The fee model isn't the only reason air travel has become more miserable in recent years. Airlines also benefit directly by throwing more seats into economy because they have more to sell. But as mergers reduce competition, airlines can more safely collude to provide poorer levels of service, and everything that adds to and increases differential experiences drives fee income, which is the most lucrative side of the business. Perhaps that's why Delta's new cabin plan offers 5 different classes of service, and why one unnamed major airline is reportedly considering introducing a level called Economy Minus, with even smaller seats than basic economy. Wow. Okay, Rafa.
The fee model isn't the only reason air travel has become more miserable in recent years. Airlines also benefit directly by throwing more seats into economy because they have more to sell. But as mergers reduce competition, airlines can more safely collude to provide poorer levels of service, and everything that adds to and increases differential experiences drives fee income, which is the most lucrative side of the business. Perhaps that's why Delta's new cabin plan offers 5 different classes of service, and why one unnamed major airline is reportedly considering introducing a level called Economy Minus, with even smaller seats than basic economy.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, it's the same kind of idea. The airlines benefit directly, so they make more money. That's the basic idea of a business. If you get a benefit, you're making more money because you're throwing more seats into. So throwing is the verb here, phrasal verb to throw into. So they're putting more seats into the economy section of the plane, and that way they have more seats to sell. So they're making more money, more people pushed into that smaller space there. And another problem is the mergers. So less competition between companies allows them to safely, or even more safely, collude. Collude means to collaborate, to agree, to work together, but in kind of in a negative sense. You collude to do something that's a negative thing. So in this case, he's using that word instead of cooperating, for example, because it has a negative connotation. They're colluding to provide poor levels of service. That's a negative thing for customers. But they're working together to do that. And so that's a very lucrative side of the business. So, lucrative thing that they do makes them a lot more money. And apparently, Delta is even planning to have 5 different classes. The cabin is the inside of the airplane. So in the cabin, that just means in the space of the airplane. Usually there's first class and economy. Sometimes there's first, business, and economy. Now there's going to be different ones, with even one called economy minus. Minus means less. So it'd be even less service, smaller seats, cramming you in there, that kind of thing. Let me break this into 2 so you guys each have something to read. The various costs described here will not appear on any bottom line, but can be easily witnessed in angry families, exhausted flight attendants, and the general sense of defeat emanating from passengers exiting coach. Coach is the economy class. At best, it can be said that more people are able to fly for less, but as JetBlue demonstrated, there need not be so much misery along the way. Okay, Monica.
Okay. The various costs described here will not appear on any bottom line, but can be easily witnessed in hungry families, exhausted flight attendants, and the general sense of defeat emanating from passengers' existing coach. At best, it can be said that more people are able to fly for less, but as JetBlue demonstrated, there need not be so much misery along the way.
Good. Okay, so the various costs described here. So he's describing these costs related to the customers, what the cost to them is. But they're not going to appear, which means to show up on or to be on any bottom line. So usually when we talk about the bottom line, it means your costs. Okay, so nobody's taking into consideration the costs to the customers, the costs of basically being upset, so having angry families, somebody's upset for whatever reasons related to the flight. Exhausted. So exhausted means not just tired, but like extremely tired. You're overworked, that kind of idea. The flight attendants, attending to more people in smaller crammed spaces, it's not so pleasant. People get frustrated, people get irritated more easily, so they're probably more upset with the flight attendants, not so pleasant or nice. That's another problem here. And the general sense of defeat. So defeat means when you lose. So basically as a customer, you're just at a loss. You're the loser because you paid the money, but you have very little service, and it can be very frustrating. And emanating from something, it just means coming from. So the defeat, the sense of defeat that comes from the passengers that are leaving or getting off the plane, they are exiting coach class. So, of course, the people walking out of first class feel good. They have a lot of room, they have a lot of service, that kind of thing. And so they're saying that JetBlue did demonstrate, they were demonstrating that you could be profitable and keep people happy, but not anymore. Ultimately, the fee models and the distinctions they draw make class inequality, which may be felt less in other places, painfully obvious. The conditions of carriage may lack the importance of other more pressing social issues. But when an airline like JetBlue is punished for merely trying to treat all of its passengers decently, something isn't right. Okay, Hamid.
Ultimately, the fee models and the distinctions they draw make a class inequality, which may be felt less in other places, painfully obvious. The conditions of carriage may lack the importance of other, more pressing social issues. But when an airline like JetBlue is punished for merely trying to treat all of its passengers decently, something isn't right.
Okay, so this sentence here is interesting, the way he put it together. So ultimately it just means like in the end, basically at the end of the analysis, after looking at all what's happening, this is what is one of the consequences. These fee models and the distinctions they draw. To draw a distinction means to differentiate, to take notice of the differences between people. So they're drawing attention to and making this class inequality. So this class inequality, and this is a little phrase here, which may be felt less in other places. So you might not know the difference between class in some other settings, like if you're at a basketball game or something, I don't know. But they are painfully obvious now. Like if people are paying more to sit up here and you're paying less and you have to sit back here, that's more obvious, the class situation, like who is rich, who is not as wealthy, that kind of idea. The conditions of carriage. Carriage means the flight. We call that the carriage. They may lack the importance of other more pressing social issues. So this might not be the most important social issue of our time, the idea of how customers feel when they're flying. That's not the most important or pressing social issue of our time. But he thought it was important enough to write an article about it because he feels like JetBlue was being punished as a company, punished because they weren't able to make as much money as the others because they were just trying to treat all of their passengers decently, which means fairly, give them good service. So he's saying there's something wrong, like in America or something like that, when a company gets punished for trying to do a good job. So that's the main idea of his article there. So we have 5 minutes left. What do you guys think about this article? Hamid, we already talked to you. Let me ask somebody else. Monica, do you fly very often?
Well, not very often. I fly for vacation usually,
Uh-huh.
and and to be honest, I usually, or lately at least, I fly with a low cost flight
Yeah.
because I've been recently most here in Europe, around Europe, so it's a short flight, and I
Yeah.
don't need to eat on the flight, and maybe I just need a handbag baggage, so I
Right.
don't mind to pay more fees for the flight. I can take a low cost flight, and
Yeah.
it's enough for me. Yes,
And
but I see that we're getting worse. It's an interesting article.
well, it is interesting because it's interesting from the point of view at least one of the point of view of the economy, and do we really have a free market? And in a free market, do customers want to pay lots of different prices to either decide, yeah, I want to pay $1,000 more and go to first class, or you know should it be left up to the customers, or should how should it be worked out? And like, you're kind of giving the point of view that as a customer you appreciate the option to fly cheaply because especially on a 1 hour flight, maybe even a 2 hour flight, it's just not that important to you maybe to have a lot of space or a lot of service or food on the flight or something like that, and you'd rather save money.
Yes,
Yeah, and so I'm showing pictures of Ryanair because I understand that Ryanair is really cheap in Europe.
yes, it is
Yeah,
common here in Europe.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, and that's part of the idea, is to provide people who want a really cheap flight, basic service, and not a lot of luxury or comfort or smooth, perfect luxury kind of trip or something. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yes, but
Yeah.
on the other side, if I have to make a long trip, I wouldn't choose Ryanair for sure.
Right, a long trip would be a lot different. Yeah, Rafa, what about you?
Yeah.
What's your experience with flying these days? Do you fly?
Yeah, I think we are assisting to a revolutionary mm, increase of flight with this low cost, the appearance of these low cost lines. And
Yeah,
I think this is a good thing because many people, young people, could go different places, travel abroad to other countries for cheaper than in a car or in a boat
yeah,
or
or the
in a
train.
train.
Yeah, even yeah,
Also, we are assisting in the other hand of the coin. We are assisting in one decrease of services. When I was young, any kind of flight costs more than now, and you have a meal on the plane. You have a lot of assistance, and right now you are in a Ryanair. You are in a lottery game where there are people selling you the coffee, the lottery, and also the bags.
yeah,
It's so
yeah,
funny
yeah.
flying with Ryanair, but because here there are a lot of flights in the night to Ibiza. Ibiza is a
Yeah, sure.
nice place. They are so drunk. Also the pilot, I think, but it's a funny story. I think we are assisting an interesting and different way to fly and
Sure.
to travel abroad. And this is very interesting for everybody because different cultures, different persons, and different languages, and
Yeah.
this is a boost. This is a must.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because some people complain about the class inequality, but then it seems like it really is there. So, and we, like you said, we're assisting in that. So if people buy those cheap tickets and they want to fly for as cheap as they can, then there are people who want to give them that. And then there are people who can afford a lot more, and there will be airline companies who can provide that service too. So, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, we ran out of time, so let me just say thanks for coming to class. And I have a listening class in the next one. We're going to listen, watch a video, and then talk about it. So maybe I'll see you there, and if not, have a good weekend, and I'll see you some other time. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.